relieve the stress, that's the way that I get things done. If I'm not under pressure, then I sleep too long, and I hang around like a bomb. I think I'm going nowhere, and that makes me nervous. Everybody's at the game, but I feel alright. Everybody's at the game, but I feel alright. Everybody's at the game, but I feel alright. Everybody's thinking about me, but I feel alright. Everybody's at the game, but I feel alright.
Welcome back to the Jimquisition, hosted by Jim Sterling, otherwise known as Jim Undertale fucking Canon, son. Have you been called out by Papyrus the Skellington in a trailer before? I don't think you have. That makes me Undertale Canon, and you, well, not. So that's good and established. But before we get on with the main thrust of the episode, I should point out that there's a little bit of disclosure needed. Jim Sterling does a little bit of voice acting on the side, and I have provided voice acting for We Happy Few, which is a game we'll be talking about today. I don't know if I'm still in it, is the problem. I last spoke to them months ago, and I don't know what the new publisher thinks. So, who gives a shit? Let's get on with the video. Remember We Happy Few? It's that game we talked about last year, the one that had a lot of people excited at E3 with its stylish Bioshocky trailer before it came out, and was, structurally, just another survival game, albeit one with the survival elements pushed to laborious, excruciating, distinctly unamusing extremes. Over the last year, Compulsion Games has worked hard on balancing, because sometimes early access games get updated, fancy that, and by all accounts it's really taking shape now. However, the game apparently can't stop disappointing folks, because this week provided another twist in We Happy Few's tale. It's going from plucky indie Kickstarter hopeful to a premium retail game backed by a so-called AAA publisher, and few are happy about it. Let's start with the big bombshell. The publisher in question is none other than Gearbox Software, villain extraordinaire among the more invested game-buying public, and with not unjustified reasons. Of course, the Jimquisition itself makes sport of dumping on Gearbox as a company for what it did with Aliens Colonial Marines, which I still contest was the biggest pack of lies in recent history, regardless of the scale of No Man's Sky's mass letting down of the public. Now I could take another opportunity to spray vomitus all over Gearbox. I'd do that doggedly and erotically, but I'm actually more interested in the knock-on result of We Happy Few going AAA. Looking at the further changes that have left fans miffed, and the wider implication of this particular game's pivot. Most telling of all is the new price. When it came out on early access, it was $30. In its announcement, where it also revealed a release date of April 13th, 2018, Gearbox stated the game would retail for double its original price, becoming a $60 AAA game. Now, assurances have naturally been made that the content will back up the MSRP, that the game's scope and ambition has expanded to justify the price hike. Nevertheless, it's a big ask of your audience to go from 30 to 60, a move made all the more unfortunate when you consider Ninja Theory just released Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice to critical acclaim and sales success. A $30 game built with an independent budget but boasting gameplay and set pieces you'd expect to see in far weightier projects. As Ninja Theory tries to prove you don't need publishers and their outdated business models to succeed, it's sad to see a crowd-funded game with a ton of similar potential essentially bargaining with the old gods. When you consider that initially Kickstarter made waves because it was a way to avoid having to make dirty deals with these publishers, well, you can see why some people felt a little bit deflated. And of course, backing up this price hike is a little bit of pre-order culture, why not? Though not the most egregious example of pre-order fuckery, in fact it's quite modest, it's important to note that We Happy Few has indulged in pre-order bonuses as we go down our AAA checklist. For reference, if you pre-order now, you get access to an exclusive item, the Jolly Brolly weapon. Those buying on PS4 will also get their obligatory theme, while others will gain access to the game's alpha version. If you want to know if there'll be a collector's edition, of course there will be. This is a AAA game now, you naive little fuck. Eat shit! For $150 you can acquire the collector's set, which comes with all sorts of plastic tat. There's like a mask and a clock and a lamp, and obviously the game is not included because most of the people interested in this game have it already, and you can much easier double down on a product if you just sell the shite and not the media itself. That's basically what this growing trend of gameless collector's editions is, by the way. It's companies wanting to sell primarily through digital distribution, but not wanting to give up the extra $100 to $200 they make on the side with a bunch of plastic shit. And if they do this, they can sell you the digital deluxe edition for like $80 as well. It's actually a clever idea, cynical as hell, but a rare glimpse of innovation from major publishers. They really do embrace inventiveness and originality. Unless it's a video game doing it. Anyway, shut up, we're not done yet. The collector's set also gives you access to the... And you knew it was coming! The Season Pass! Trumpet noises. Yes, the Season Pass, the game industry's favourite way of honouring dire straits. The logical endpoint of pre-order extremity, where we're expected to pay up front for downloadable content that you can't really justify either way. Either it's pre-planned content, in which case you wonder why it wasn't in the expensive game to begin with, or it's not been planned at all, in which case you're expected to pay for literally fucking nothing until something materialises from within the developer's metaphorical arsehole. And if you think this no-win condition I've applied to season passes is unfair, that argumentatively I've stacked the deck against them, good! It's what they deserve! The Season Pass is one of the most blatant illusions going on in the game industry. Companies conjuring up excuses and weak content to retroactively justify a long-made decision to try and bilk even more upfront cash out of the audience. Another solution to a problem the industry itself invented, like the microtransactions they adore. It's all smoke and mirror bullshit, which is probably why low-rent Mysterio loves them so much. Anyway, no microtransactions in We Happy Few. Yet. Naturellement, all of these announcements rankled the rabble that so loves to be roused, and with good reason, I say. The price doubled, the publisher's unpopular, the collector's edition is contrived, and season passes are horse shit. And more to the point, it's led me to a question, the one that convinced me to make this a Jimquisition rather than just something else, like a, I don't know, a tweet or something. Anyway, here's the question. Is there like some sort of rulebook that games have to follow when they become so-called AAA titles? Like, the day the partnership's announced, We Happy Few doesn't just expand its scale and price, it goes almost entirely all in on associated AAA bullshit. Embracing pre-orders, extravagant collector's editions, and season pass horse fuckery all at once. To me, it seems to suggest that publishers have now become so set in their ways, so accustomed to these extra ways of nickel and diming their audience, they literally can't conceive of any other way of doing business. AAA gaming has long since stopped being just about the budget or corporate weight behind it. It's become about certain bullet points that have to be fulfilled, none of them particularly popular, but all of them making money because what's popular and what's popular in italics are two very different things. That's the message I've received loud and clear with We Happy Few. Outside of the usual debates that always get had about whether or not Kickstarter projects should ever seek publishers, for the record I think it's generally fine if fully disclosed, my predominant takeaway is that publishers have settled into a routine of content portioning, rigid price structuring, and obligatory collector's editions that will be likely of less value than their original asking price in future because every fucking game's got one now. The fact the game jumped from $30 to $60, for the sake of it, demonstrated the archaic and unyielding nature of AAA publishing. Things get done because that's the way they're done. AAA games cost $60. We Happy Few is a AAA game now. We Happy Few therefore must cost $60. Why? Well, because them's the rules. If they weren't the rules, the Order 1886 would have cost $19.99 at launch, like it does now. Because that's what it's actually fucking worth. We Happy Few is a game about breaking away from conformity and undermining an established status quo that's doing more harm than good. How grimly fitting that We Happy Few has, itself, fully conformed to industrial status quo and is now indulging in the same erosive business practices that are only saturating the game industry with an exhausting, dizzying overload of ways to give publishers all of your money. And I'm not mad at compulsion, just disappointed. More to the point, I'm simply interested that We Happy Few was so efficiently ran through the AAA machine to come out the other end as another shiny $60 product, with all the unwanted accoutrements we've grown sadly used to. Almost as if the industry's had far too much practice at turning games into cold, calculated products. There are far more egregious oversteps in this rotten little market. I mean, compared to the way those fucked hacks at Warner Brothers are ripping Shadow of War to shreds, We Happy Few is doing just fine. But it's a shame, nonetheless, and an intriguing public glimpse at just how unimaginative, mechanical, downright clinical the big name industry is when it comes to making all its content behave the exact same way. It's part of why I'm miffed that Ninja Theory kept promoting Hellblade as an indie AAA game, because stuff like We Happy Few confirms that what we think of as AAA isn't really about finances. It's about culture. AAA games have a set culture attached to them that means whatever the budget, whatever the price, they'll stick to a recognisable, customer-unfriendly formula. Hellblade isn't an indie AAA, nor is it what some have amusingly called a AA game. No A's in sight, because I think we all agree by now that the A stands for arsehole. Hellblade is a $30 quality video game and that's it. To implicate it in the AAA world in any fashion is an insult, because creating a quality video game, let alone one at $30, couldn't be further from the mind of big name publishers. So long story short, it's not exactly maddening that We Happy Few was AAA'd overnight, just very, very, very interesting. A transformation of product due to the signage of a contract. It's like a magic trick. It's my sincere hope that Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice performs well, and by all accounts it's doing very well, at least on the PlayStation Network, and that's a good thing, because as with Kickstarter, I am always looking for something, I'm always excited about a new business model, some new method of raising money that cuts out the publishers, and that's how it should be. Publishers aren't really needed, they've just convinced the world we still rely on them. They've just convinced the world they need to stick around. And there's enough legislation and lobbying and tax havens, thank you Super Bunny Hop, for them to continue to do so. So hopefully, Ninja Theory come good and demonstrate that you don't have to be part of the machine to make quality games. In fact, because of the culture around AAA, I think it's quite the opposite. I think it's getting increasingly more difficult to just make a good fucking game under that regime. So hopefully, fingers crossed, Senua's Sacrifice demonstrates you can make a good quality game on a decent budget without the need for some corporation breathing down your neck, and the game industry will be a lot better off. Thank God for me, I am officially Undertale canon, and I'm not taking no for an answer. Pricks.
Everybody's thinking about me. Hit the lever.
Time for a quick blast of fuck Konami news, all the news that makes you say fuck Konami, because why not? Today's news comes from a viewer called Blackstep, thank you very much, who sent in a little interesting bit of news about the Indianapolis Convention Center. They normally do Gen Con, and this viewer was curious as to what else they do. They got all sorts of things, like the Zoo Association, zoos and aquariums, some company that sells trailers. You can find out about all these companies and the products they sell. They've all got websites listed, and then you even find out how many people are attending the show at the convention centre. Konami is listed twice. Konami has 0 attendees listed. Konami doesn't have a link to any websites. Konami has 2 events at the Indianapolis Convention Center, one in early September, one coming right up, and nobody knows anything about it, nobody's confirmed to attend. Not the most explosive of revelations, but to a petty man like me, it's prime material for fuck Konami news. Another example of just the little ways in which Konami can be completely fucking incompetent and drop the fucking ball, because its PR department doesn't know its arse from its arse. That's how little it knows about its arse, by the way. It thinks its arse and its arse are 2 different things. It calls its arse, and its elbow its arse. I think I made my point.